I'm a storyteller. I tell women's stories.
She is so passionate about teaching everybody about women in history and what their accomplishments have been.
To just see the things that we were never taught. All the women that have done so many amazing things, and she's compiled them into this one book.
I make sure that they get recognized for those accomplishments.
As strong and enduring as the Rocky Mountains they stood beside, as visionary as the views of the Grand Plains they looked across, the women inducted into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame are trailblazers whose work has improved and enriched our lives. They are teachers, scientists, ranchers, leaders in business, education, religion, and the arts. Women who have been recognized for their many contributions to our state, our country, and the world. I'm Renelda Muse, and these are the stories of great Colorado women.
Women's stories are not told in the history that we learn in school. So it's important to me to write women back into history.
She's a woman of action. She has an idea, and then she goes after it. She just does it.
It all started in 1988. I was elected to the National Board of the Society of Women Engineers, and at the first board meeting, the president held up the nomination forms for the National Medal of Science and the National Medal of Technology, the U.S. equivalent of the Nobel Prize, awarded by the President of the United States. I'd never heard of those awards, and she asked for a volunteer to fill out the nominations, and no one raised her hand. So I did, and I began to do nominations.
She's the chief nominator of women into many organizations. She does that task very, very well, and does it very often on behalf of other women.
My first successful nominee to the National Women's Hall of Fame was Admiral Grace Murray Hopper.
In 1943, there was a woman named Admiral Grace Murray Hopper, and she was a mathematician, and she was recruited to work on the very first computers. And later, she created the first computer compiler, which is turning human language into all the zeros and ones that computers use.
And I worked on Admiral Hopper's nomination for 2 years.
It really is a lot of work to put together these nominations.
And I'm looking at the list of people who have received this medal. She was the first individual woman to receive the medal. And then she asked me to receive it for her at the White House Rose Garden. So on the hottest day of my whole life, I was at the White House to receive her medal. So Admiral Hopper was really the catalyst for all of the work that I've done on women in awards. I have been blessed to have mentors throughout my career, and almost all of my mentors have been men because I'm an electrical engineer. I know now, particularly in retrospect, I can see all of the opportunities that they provided for me. All along the way, there was someone who was looking out for my interests, seeing that I had every training opportunity.
She comes from a family of highly educated people.
My father was an engineer at NASA at the Langley Research Center for his entire career.
And he actually ran the Langley laboratories, so he was very, very knowledgeable. And those skills ran over to Jill.
I'm the oldest of 4 children, and we were told, all 4 of us, the whole time that we were growing up, that we would be going to college. And I am very fortunate that by the time I was ready to go to college as the oldest of those 4, that the University of Virginia, which was my first choice, had been ordered by the United States District Court to admit women.
She was one of the first 10 women to receive an engineering degree at the University of Virginia.
The most interesting thing about my college experience is that I was in the dorm that used to be a boys' dorm, so when we moved in, the urinals were still in the bathrooms and there were still gang showers. It wasn't that it was unique being a woman in engineering at the University of Virginia. It was unique being a woman at the University of Virginia. I actually started college as a math major because no one, not even my PhD engineer father, said that I should consider engineering as a career.
But Jill said, no, I want to learn that, and she took all of the technical courses she could.
And I really liked the classes that the engineering students were taking. And so I changed to engineering starting at the beginning of my sophomore year.
Jill has, of course, spent time in Virginia and North Carolina before she came to Colorado.
I moved to Colorado with my first husband in 1981. After we graduated in 1976, we both went to work for Duke Power Company in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then we started skiing in North Carolina. And we decided that we wanted to leave Duke Power Company but stay in the energy industry, and Denver was very attractive for that.
Because of her personality, I think it was a good match. She's a leader in the community, she's a leader in the industry, and Colorado is very open to that. They welcome people in that want to take charge and make a difference. And Jill, I believe Jill is the right person at the right time.
The experience that I had being mentored is important in understanding the importance that one word of encouragement can have, or one act of kindness, or that belief in someone else.
Jill is great because she's a great role model for women, but she doesn't limit herself in that respect. She would help men and women.
She was very instrumental in upgrading my skills. I was essentially computer illiterate at the time, and Jill said, Jim, why don't I teach you how to use the computer? So I owe her a debt for extending the useful career that I have to where I am today.
Jill, I think, has an uncanny way of seeing qualities in people that they don't believe are there. So she's very good at that.
We talk about each other as reciprocal life coaches because that relationship transcends the just friendship or just professional colleague.
She's helped give me my voice in feeling more confident, especially in situations where I just really needed to be assertive. And so she's very good at making you believe in yourself and that you can do anything, and she's come through for me on that.
I had very significant doubts. There were many other people that seemed to think that I was what I now actually see myself as. There's a term in literature called the imposter syndrome. At some point, somebody is really going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing and that I'm not this person. The good news for me is that I now believe it.
One of the great things about Jill is that she has a really good take on life and philosophy on life. You just work around whatever you run into, whatever barrier or hurdle, you find a different solution or work around it.
9 months after we were married, my first husband's parents died in a murder-suicide, and we raised his two brothers, who were 14 and 18. And another man actually also died as a result, and it happened over a period of about 8 weeks between my mother-in-law's being shot and dying, the other man dying, and then my father-in-law committing suicide. And so I always look at opportunities or situations and say, what is the worst that can happen? And can it be as bad as that personal experience that I had? And the answer is always no. It can't get worse than that.
You know, I appreciate her enthusiasm about everything, about life, but about my career. The things that I've been able to accomplish even recently with my Emmy win, but she is more excited about it than I am. And I think I cherish that about her the most, her enthusiasm. Because of the path that I've been on with Jill, I've been able to accomplish that because of her. Her encouragement of my career, things that I was afraid to do. She's like, you need to do it, you have to do it, I insist that you do it. And it's like, I will, and I did.
mentoring a young woman right now who's a PhD student in chemical and biological engineering. I know really nothing about the technical work that she does, but she's brilliant. And she doesn't believe that she's brilliant. And she doesn't believe that she's capable. And that's my job. My job is to make sure that she has confidence and that she moves forward and that someone believes that she's capable.
There's what you get from Jill when you read her books or her articles, and then there's what you get when she's staring at you in the face and she's challenging you and asking you questions and poking and trying very hard to empower anyone with what's their vision, what's their mission, what do they want to accomplish.
It's never about her. It's about how others can learn from each other and help each other. And so mentoring in that way, all the way to the times that she will sit with someone for hours and talk.
So my most favorite story about Jill is a personal one. And it happened just about a year before my father passed away. And he was involved in a contract deal with a rather unscrupulous author who was writing a book about my father's life. So this one afternoon, he had called my father and said some unkind things and really upset my dad. And after he hung up, I told my father, let me call my friend Jill. She's had a lot of experience with this sort of thing. And so I did, and as busy as she was, she dropped absolutely everything and came to my parents' home and comforted my parents and me and touched my father so much that she was such a good friend to me that she would do that she would drop everything and just drive over to my parents' house.
Jill is one of the most ambitious, energetic people I have ever known.
She can't just sit. She has to be doing something all the time. I love that energy about her.
She's very persistent. I always say persistent and professional.
There really is very little separation between her personal life and her professional life.
The engineering construction business can be a tough business. And particularly back when Jill entered the industry.
You didn't see women at all.
There are not any women in this field. And it was very eye-opening. I just really had no idea. I guess I should have figured it out.
You didn't see women in engineering roles. You didn't see women in management roles. You didn't see women, let alone in any kind of leadership roles.
It was very male-dominated. Therefore, she had to find her way to make a difference. And so she did it. And to me, that is a challenge into itself and needs to be recognized.
I was at North Carolina State University on behalf of Duke Power doing on-campus recruiting, and there at a table in the gymnasium at the career fair was the Society of Women Engineers. I'd never heard of them.
It's probably the chief engineering organization for women across the country.
I went up and I said, who are you and what do you do? And they gave me an application to join, and I joined immediately, because what they did was encourage particularly young women to pursue careers in engineering and to provide the opportunities for those women in engineering to have opportunities to develop professionally.
We've lived through to where nobody thinks a thing about that now. It's not unusual to see female CEOs. Jill lived through that, and Jill contributed to that.
She kind of kicked open the door about getting women into the STEM fields. She was involved in leading Rocky Mountain Electric League. I saw her do great things there as well.
We had recruited Jill to be on the board. She was first female member of the board, first female president of Boardroom.
They never had a woman. They didn't know how to deal with a woman.
Whether she's a woman or a man, I mean, she comes across knowing what she's talking about and can hold her own in any conversations.
She garners respect. She does her homework. She was very persistent, and she brought a lot to the table.
Somebody has to be the first. It might as well be me. I might as well break that trail for the other people so that they don't have to be the first. Being on those boards is very, very important and sends a message to the women employees that it is possible to rise into senior management and to have other opportunities.
Behind that drive is, I think, she wants to do the best she can, to be the best person she can, but also bring out the best in others.
There are many walls of honor in engineering schools and in technical engineering companies across the country. And whenever I see one of those, I count the women. I usually don't get through one hand. And that's my job, to get more women on those walls. I now view it as my personal mission.
How do you look at her life's work or her body of work to date?
If you've ever looked at her resume, I think you'd be startled. It's really the most extensive I've ever seen.
Back in the mid-90s, she started doing all this writing of articles and books and speaking engagements and such. I suggested to her that she keep a record of all of these, and so she did.
Jill had every bit of detail. Her documentation was impeccable.
It's a very, very big task, not only to do the performance or the speaking, but to record it in her resume.
In 1997, I applied for and got the job at CU Boulder as the director of the Women in Engineering program. And then as I was doing that job, decided that it was not the appropriate long-term job for me. I said, okay, I'm going out on my own. And so it was a very important step in my development because it showed me that I didn't want to do Women in Engineering program full-time, but it gave me the confidence that I thought I needed to go and be on my own.
She just works untiringly all the time and is so passionate about teaching everybody about women's history and women in history and what their accomplishments have been.
There was some turning point in there early in the 90s where she realized that more women need to be nominated for awards. They need to be written into history. We can't forget those that have, come before us in any career, not just engineering.
One of the ways in which women have been achieving in the last 20, 30 years has been to be on boards of organizations and corporations. And Jill has done both herself, but she does not shy from nominating other women, and she does that continuously, and she does it exceedingly well.
How could women not be receiving awards and recognitions that they deserved? And so it's all a matter of one thing leads to another, leads to another. So these nominations led me to being recognized as an expert nationally. I learned how to do a nomination. And so after I had done that, I knew how it was done. And so I started nominating women for the National Women's Hall of Fame, for the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, the National Inventors Hall of Fame, the New Jersey Inventors Hall of Fame. The list just goes on and on. It's about getting women the recognition that they need for what they've done in their lives.
That's really an unusual task that she has assigned to herself.
I do think that's her legacy, is that she's really on a mission to bring all of these women to the public's attention and get people to realize how much women have done when they were not supposed to be doing it, before they could vote, before they could go to college, before they could go to medical school.
The women have the accomplishments themselves. What I do is I make sure that they get recognized for those accomplishments.
And I was one of the lucky people, actually, who got nominated, or was nominated by Jill for an award that I would never have won had she not been nominating me for it.
I now view it as my personal mission. I'm a storyteller. I tell women's stories. Women's stories are not told in the history that we learn in school. In fact, our standard history textbooks are less than 1% content female, so it's important to me to tell women's stories, to write women back into history.
She's written series on women in various professions, not just engineering, but accounting and business.
At this point in time, I've actually authored 8 books.
I think I would probably cite her story, the book. You know, I think that that has had an impact on so many women to just see the things that we were never taught in public school, or private school for that matter.
It really is incredible how many women are in this book that you've never heard of who have contributed significantly.
The women are from 1587 to 2011 who are abolitionists and suffragists and entrepreneurs and educators and painters and writers and Nobel laureates and governors and singers and TV writers across fashion designers, golfers, swimmers, every field of endeavor.
That's really the interesting part. There's not a full biography on each woman in here. What it is just a small text talking about her major accomplishment, and it inspires girls to then do research on women they've never even heard of before, had no idea.
I think by Jill portraying more and more women in history through stories, through just sharing that information, I think it helps us, and you don't feel like you're the only one.
So I think her legacy is bringing all of these women to light and really telling their stories.
Engineers tend to be shy. We tend to not be very good at public relations, and I think Jill recognized all of that and really tried to get out there and be an advocate for our industry.
I was trained to do public speaking when I was at Duke Power Company, and I also am very thankful for that training because now I speak 50 to 100 times a year, and that training that I got all those many years ago has been so beneficial for me.
Jill and I were on a panel together, and she was encouraging young women particularly to get into the engineering field. What I remember was just how engaged the audience was, just how engaged those young women were. They're kind of leaning forward, listening. They knew that she had earned her stripes, if you will, and I could just see a little sparkle in her eyes that someday some of them wanted to kind of walk in her footsteps.
The message that I would want to leave to women and girls, we do have the skills and the capabilities, and we have to stop thinking that we don't.
The young women that have worked around Jill will remember her personal commitment, and they will remember her energy to do better.
You probably haven't heard about Jill the philanthropist, but she's very much someone who gives not just of her time and of her intellect, but her resources as well.
Probably the biggest contribution was setting up the scholarship fund.
There are literally hundreds of kids today that are going to college because of her.
I was planning to endow these scholarships in my will, and I thought, why wait? Maybe I should do it while I'm alive. And what I didn't know is that it would be so much fun meeting the recipients and getting to know the recipients who in many cases have become part of my life, have become friends and colleagues. It's been wonderful.
I think Jill is a beacon of professionalism.
Her work ethic is unparalleled.
She works continuously.
She's had so many amazing accomplishments.
I'm sure she can be remembered for a lot of things in a lot of ways. There are clients who will remember her because of the work that she did that helped them make the right decisions.
How they should remember Jill, in my mind, is she opened the door.
Her legacy is not just in the people that she's interacted with, but with her own philanthropy.
Jill is a very thoughtful human being.
I think Jill's legacy will be what she does to try to make sure that women are written into history and not left out.
She showed up over and over and over again.
She's done so much, and she's going to continue to do so much.
I can't wait to see what she does next.
I look back at my relationship with Jill, and I'm better for having known her.
She's changing the world one girl at a time, and her impact will be felt for decades to come.